Hello to you all and welcome to another instalment of the Pitcast by us here at the PitCrew Online, from the fans, for the fans. On this week's episode, we come ready to discuss the climatic conclusion of the Bahrain Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton engaged in an enthralling battle to the finish with Red Bull's Max Verstappen. I am your host, Adam Wheeler, resident IndyCar editor and fellow contributor at the PitCrew Online. And joining me are two special returning guests. First of all, we have our Formula One contributor and fellow Red Bull superfan, Ashleigh.
Hello. Hello. I'm Ashleigh. I've been on here a couple times now. Yeah, massive Red Bull fan, specifically a Max fan. So this was a painful race. It was an exciting race, but it was a painful one. But we'll talk about it in a bit. Your messages on the group chat after the race were just underlined how much one word answers. Yeah. That was it.
But we'll get into that. And also joining us, of course, is our fellow BTCC editor, Arron. Say hi, Arron.
Hello, guys. You all right?
Yeah, good man. So let's just get into it. So after pitting earlier onto hard tyres, Hamilton was forced onto a 28-lap stint, while Verstappen chased him down on fresher medium tyres. With little over 10 laps remaining, the fight everyone has been waiting for came closer and closer until Verstappen charged around the outside of turn 4, placing all four wheels off the track in order to do so. We all thought the battle was won until a message from race control forced Red Bull to instruct Verstappen to let Hamilton back through, to Ashleigh's dismay. With 2 laps to go, Hamilton used what was left of his hard rubber to fend off the charging Dutchman and take the checkered flag to achieve his 96th win in Formula One and win the Bahrain Grand Prix. So let's just get into this. While Mercedes will see this as a massive win, in their hopes for the 2021 season, considering many factors over the weekend, the main question I want to ask you guys really is, was Lewis and Mercedes lucky to win the Bahrain Grand Prix? Max Verstappen did absolutely everything possible to get that win, and will feel gutted that he didn't come away with the glory. Ashleigh, what do you think?
Short answer is yes, I think so. Personally, I sort of saw it as Red Bull's race to lose, and they did marginally, I would say. I think when Hamilton won the race, like the reaction in the Mercedes garage just said it all. Like for me, Toto celebrating in that way, like, yeah, they've all gotten used to winning after so many seasons of being so dominant. But that one, I think it seemed a little bit more significant because they'd sort of just come to peace with the fact that, it's probably not going to be our weekend. Especially when, even in the lead up, Hamilton was like, yeah, Red Bull look really strong, and he'd sort of already mentally prepared himself, I guess. So, yeah, I don't think it was a result that anybody really expected. But it made for a more interesting race, I think. It wasn't just a clear cut, Hamilton's in front, that's it. It was definitely a really good season opener, I would say. But not the result I'd have wanted, personally.
Yeah, I've got to agree. It's probably one of the best season openers we've seen in a long time. I had a friend who just started watching Formula One for the first time this season after watching Drive to Survive, and he messaged me saying, if that's what Formula One is, I'm so on board. So, what a race to start. Arron, what do you think? Was Lewis lucky to win that race?
I think it was just nice to see Mercedes on the back foot for once, personally. It was only Max Verstappen's 4th pole position, which baffled me a little bit.
Was that his first back-to-back pole position? Did I hear that right?
Could have been. I'm not too sure. I know he's only had 4, which, like I say, how quick Max is baffling. He's only had 4. But yeah, I think, Mercedes were pretty lucky. Going into the race, Red Bull were the quicker team through practice, through qualifying. And yeah, it was really good to see Mercedes squirm a little bit, and actually feel like they've looked out for once rather than they're the ones just dominating.
That's a good point, Arron. They did feel the pressure and they did win. And I think last year we had a lot of situations where Mercedes came under pressure and then they came unstuck due to that pressure, back in Sakir and possibly Russia. But there's been a couple of times last year where people said as soon as Mercedes actually had a fight on their hands, they just crumbled. But it seems like today they came through and actually did it. But there's a part of me that thinks Red Bull were the faster car. And that sort of was underlined at first at pre-season testing. And we kept saying, you know, are Red Bull going to be the season contenders this year? Do they have the pace? And that pole position that Max got confirmed that. And it was just such a surprise to see Lewis just do enough to, even with the slower car, still fend off Max Verstappen.
Yeah, there was a number of factors that contributed to it, though, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get onto it. Yeah, no, that's
fine. We're ready to get into it.
Yeah.
Well, one of those factors we'll talk about, I guess we'll move on to it right now, is the track limits, of course, the thing that really decided Max Verstappen's place in this race. You know, it's got people really riled up that Lewis Hamilton went all four wheels off at turn one, I think about 29 times. Someone counted across the race and was told, I think halfway through the race, that he should stop doing so or at least change his direction going through that corner. It seemed odd though, didn't it? It was like there was this permeable rule that meant one thing at one point and then one thing at another. And a lot of people are using that as an argument to say, well, you know, double standards. You know, if Verstappen did that using an overtake and got penalized for it, why shouldn't Lewis 29 times going a bit too much over turn 4 get some sort of penalty himself? But I guess it's a different scenario, isn't it? It's, you know, Verstappen ultimately did a move that was for a position, and because he went all four wheels off, that's a different situation, isn't it, Ashleigh?
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating. Track limits generally is something that is a bit of a bone of contention whenever it gets mentioned, I think. I think the problem this weekend was the fact that it was so ambiguous, or it felt really ambiguous. So like in qualifying, there were lap times that were being deleted because they'd exceeded track limits, but yet in the race, it didn't quite come into fruition. I think there was a radio message to Max where he was saying, I think the engineer maybe mentioned to go a bit wide in turn 4 because that's what Lewis is doing. And Max responded with, I thought that was against the rules. So even then there's a weird, just a miscommunication. And then Lewis is there saying, oh, well, I've been doing it the whole race. And nobody picked up on that. Like if one team is being told, no, you cannot do it, and yet the other team is just, I don't know, it was strange. That's all I'm going to say. It was frustrating. I think for me, the move that Max made was similar to, was it in Austria against Leclerc? He took him around the outside. I think it was a little bit of a dodgy move, and there was sort of a bit of a bone of contention about whether he should have got the position. So I wasn't sure if it was a case of the stewards sort of saying, okay, we don't want this kind of situation, Max, you need to give it back. And maybe I'm clutching at straws there. I don't know. It just popped into my head. I was like, actually, looking at it, maybe it was kind of sort of similar situation.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Aaron, what do you think?
I mean, Christian Horner said that it gained them 0.2 seconds a lap going off wide. I don't know if it'd give you 2/10 going that wide, to be honest. I mean, you know, we all know what Christian Horner's like, but he'll
go digging some video footage or something to ink as we saw him Drive to Survive.
But yeah, I mean, gaining that much time, supposedly 29 times over a race is a lot of time. You know, which Hamilton supposedly made. But like Ashleigh says, he said, I've been doing this all race, I don't see what the issue is. You know, it just doesn't sit right with me for some reason. I mean, I know Michael Massey's come out and said, you know, it's been consistent all the way through, but has it? I don't know.
No, not when the times are being deleted in qualifying. It's just a bit, I don't know. I just feel like they dropped the ball with that. They need to set it. I think they've done it before in races where they've gone into them and said, look, this is it. You exceed the track limits here and you get your time deleted or whatever. I don't understand why they keep why we keep on having this conversation about, that ambiguity. Like, what is it? I don't know. It's really baffling. It's so strange.
I don't know if it's because a race is, you know, it's happening live, whereas if your lap time's deleted, you've probably got time to do another lap, whether it be as good. But because the race is here and gone real quick, it's the only conclusion I can make is that they can't redo that situation. If Max overtakes and gains an advantage, as they say, then they can't redo the race because, Mercedes appeal or whatever.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter earlier where basically all the drivers before the race should have got instructed that actually going all four wheels off turn 4 was actually okay. And you saw actually a lot of drivers were doing the exact same thing across the race. Sonoda was doing it, Leclerc was doing it, and there's a few pictures to prove that a lot of drivers throughout the race were utilizing it. But the thing that Hamilton was doing was he was going too far off at turn 4. So it wasn't actually the fact that all four wheels were off the track. It was just how far he was actually taking it. And that's obviously where the blurring of the lines goes, because it's not like you can enforce that. It's like how can you measure being like, say, 5 meters off turn 4 or being 10 meters off turn 4? It's an arbitrary number. So if you're going to tell someone, okay, you can actually go off at turn 4, but actually just a little bit, that you can't do that. It's either all or nothing. Otherwise, drivers will exploit it, because you know what drivers are like. They see something and they'll push it to the absolute limits. And that was the radio message that Red Bull put to Max, because they saw Hamilton was going so far off that they said to Max, okay, you do exactly the same thing, because that he's gaining time. And I think they may have potentially radioed both of them, and maybe about 3/4 of the way through the race, to then say, oh no, please cut back on what both of you are doing, because it's actually going a bit too far off. It was strange. It was really strange.
Only part way through the race as well. Like,
I
don't know. If they'd have highlighted it, if that's what happened, they should have been keeping an eye out for it, because as you know, drivers are going to do what they're going to do. Like, they're going to push it. But it's done now, isn't it? It's something. I'm sure it won't be the last time that we're talking about track limits.
No, it's
call me old-fashioned. Let's just bring back gravel traps. They won't do it, will they?
That's it. Gravel traps. We love them, don't we? I think does Imola's quite like that, isn't it? There's a lot of gravel traps and not a lot of runoff. So hopefully we won't see the same thing repeated in 3 weeks. But I mean, because Max was told to go back and give the place back to Hamilton, that almost inferred that race control got in contact with Red Bull instantly to say, right, this is what you've got to do, which I found really strange, because you don't tend to see that. You always tend to see them either wait to the end of the race or they give a penalty. And Max said on the radio, once he was finishing the race, he said to the team, why didn't you let me keep the place but then push for a fight to build a 5-second gap in front of Hamilton to almost preempt that penalty? And regardless if he'd got one or not, we still could have chanced in order to get that race win. Did you guys find that odd? Like, why didn't they just keep him out?
I'm surprised that it was race control that got in touch so fast. I mean, if you were watching it live, I sort of imagined, they'd just done the sportsmanshipy, the good thing of actually giving it back because it was an ambiguous place to overtake. But yeah, it is surprising. Usually it would just be like, under investigation, or, and they take absolutely ages to deliberate, But there again, they've done that before, and then we've been waiting hours and hours before. I think there was who was it that was writing a race report for previously, and the actual race result wasn't determined until 3 or 4 hours after the race had been finished, because they were investigating something. It was ridiculous. We were waiting for ages. So maybe they've learned a lesson, but it's don't take too long when you're deciding something. But to me, as I was watching it, I thought, okay, they've just done like the good thing of giving it back, and they'll actually fight in a healthy way, maybe not a dodgy way.
The commentators were going mental. They thought he was having a problem. They thought he'd got an engine issue, and I thought the exact same thing. I thought, oh my gosh, look at him slow down. But that didn't turn out to be. He got right back on the gearbox of Hamilton. What do you think, Aaron? Do you think they should have just chanced it and built a 5-second gap in front, or did they have no choice in the matter?
I mean, I think if they didn't give it back, maybe they were wary of the FIA giving them a stern penalty in just 5 seconds. Maybe they give 10 seconds, said, sod you, will make it impossible for you to win regardless. I think where we give it back is probably the wrong place. I think he slowed down a bit too much and Hamilton just sped off. But this thing about 2/10 a lap for 29 times, that's 5.8 seconds. So if you get that off Hamilton's time, if it was a 5-second penalty, then Verstappen would have edged it if my maths is right. But I think they were just worried about getting either A, getting a Sterner penalty, or B, there's no guarantee he'd have pulled out a 5-second lead. I mean, I know Hamilton's tyres were a lot older, but he still had a lot of pace on them tyres.
There was a big wobble afterwards when when he thought, oh, he's going to take Hamilton straight away in a better position. He just went all over the place for a bit. It was so strange to watch. I thought, oh God, is he suddenly just lost the tyres? Like,
locked up into that. I thought, this is it. This is Max's chance, but it's not quite.
That was it, wasn't it? I mean, as soon as he did that, he scrubbed his tyres, which wouldn't have helped for about a lap or two, and that was pretty much instrumental. And I guess that feeds into the conversation as well as to whether Lewis was lucky or not. I mean, was Max actually going to chase him down after he had made that mistake? Regardless, Max did make that mistake at that turn, and that could have cost him the race anyway. But I think we kind of also need to acknowledge how good Lewis was for those final 10 laps. I don't know how old those tyres were in the end. It was was it 20 laps or something along those lines? It was he was complaining about the rears basically throughout that entire time. And I think when you've got a driver of that ability who can hold off a driver like Max Verstappen on 15 lap fresher tyres on a compound harder than the person who's chasing you down, this is why Hamilton is one of the best in the business, really. And this is why Mercedes need to keep him on board, because those kind of results are the fine lines which are going to ultimately win you a championship.
Yeah, I mean, if Bottas was in that situation, would he have held Max off? I mean, I don't think he would.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Aaron. I don't think Bottas would have done that.
Alonso and Michael Schumacher in 2005 Imola, where Alonso just held Schumacher off. Schumacher was on his gearbox for the last 10 laps, and he just so resiliently held him off, which is the mark of a brilliant driver, I think, especially when you've got someone like Max Verstappen, who is probably the heir apparent to Hamilton's crown, if you ask me. So, it was compelling viewing. I mean, I'm not a massive Hamilton fan, as it's probably known, but you can't fault it. I can't begrudge what he did. It was impressive.
I agree.
It was amazing. And going back to something that Lucas said in the chat just before we went on here was Perez's formation lap when he broke down. He sacrificed one lap of the race by doing that, and had Max Verstappen had one more lap to push for Hamilton, I think he was something like 7 or 8 tenths going into that final corner. One more lap. Could he have done it had Perez not have broken down on that formation lap? Who knows? That's I'm putting my tinfoil hat on now, trying to clutch at straws. But maybe that was instrumental in giving Lewis Hamilton the win in the end. Going slightly off Mercedes now onto Red Bull in general, let's talk about them, because even though they may feel robbed considering the result yesterday, they can take plenty of positives away, can't they? Because Verstappen took pole by almost half a second, was it? Or 4 tenths or something, which is, it's massive when you consider the person who you're going up against. That underlined the performance that we saw in pre-season testing. Not only are Red Bull looking like title challengers, but they're now looking like title challengers at the first race of the season, which is not something we're used to seeing. This could be a classic, couldn't it?
Finally. Finally.
Yes.
How long have we been waiting?
Too long.
Oh, God. How many podcasts have we done with it? Yeah. Hamilton, Mercedes have dominated again. Yeah. And finally, fair play to Mercedes, have done very well. But finally, we can talk about, obviously my favourite team, but just some good racing. We've been starved of this for so long, and it's so nice to see Mercedes sweat. And we said it right at the start, but it's just, it's so promising for F1. And there's something about I don't know about you guys, but going into this weekend, it's so exciting. There was so much change about on the paddock, even I'm talking like I was there, but it felt like there was so much change, and there's so much promise. And I think, obviously Red Bull looked really strong. And I mean, I did the little bit of the launch for when they released the car, and there wasn't a lot of change, but they were making a lot of noise about the fact that they had this engine, and they were pretty proud of that. And I mean, it delivered. They've put their money where their mouth is, literally, and it seems to be doing well. I mean, it's the first race, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But we'll see. I mean, it's good for Red Bull, but I think just generally, like, we've got so much to look forward to with a load of teams. I think I'm excited to see how McLaren do as well, because I mean, Lando in P4, if we just remove Bottas, I think he would be consistently on the podium. So it would just take Bottas as like a dodgy weekend, and I think we'll be able to see McLaren up there. And Tsunoda as well, he did really well, I think.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, I'm really what do you guys think? I'm just really excited.
I love it. Arron, what do you think? Can Red Bull take positives away from this weekend?
Oh, of course they can. Yeah, I mean, like Ash says, there's no point getting ahead of yourself. There's another 22 races, to go. And Ferrari have won the first race before, and Mercedes have just we'll let you have that one, but we'll beat you in the end. But for the first time in a long time, I was excited. I've become real cynical of F1 at the minute. Hamilton's just going to win again. I'm not watching it. I'll watch it, but I'll be on my phone on Twitter.
Yeah.
This is the first one in a long time where I've sat there on the edge of my seat, like, oh, come on, Max. But I'm just glad we're having a fight for once. It's not a procession. It's not a case of we're going into the weekend thinking, oh, Mercedes will be top, Red Bull will be near them. We've still got Verstappen, Bottas, but it was exciting for once.
Different order. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not this weekend, but give it time.
Yeah. Well,
I'll check it. It was good.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because as we touched on there, the Honda Power Unit seems absolutely like it's revitalized Red Bull. But not only that, but because of the different aerodynamic rules that have gone into this season that have either favoured or not favoured the high rake or low rake cars, it also looks like they've got an advantage through the high speed corners as well. So, going to a track like Imola, where there's a lot of high speed corners, maybe Red Bull will potentially be favourites going into that race.
I don't know if I think the Red Bulls generally, I mean, I could be completely wrong because I'm not an overly technical person. Like, you probably need to speak to somebody else about that. But I feel like the Red Bulls generally tend to struggle on straight line speed against the Mercedes anyway. Yeah. They've always generally been stronger with cornering. So maybe we're going to see them. It's not just going to be like a couple of tenths or whatever. It's going to be like a bit more. And I'm jumping ahead of myself again. Anyway, it's exciting. It's good.
It's exciting. No, it really is. And, a part of me thinks, where could Perez have finished had he not have started from the pit lane as well? He fought all the way up to 5th place. But let's face it, if he'd started from 11th on those medium tyres, I personally think he could have finished ahead of Bottas. I think it could have been a Perez Hamilton, Perez Hamilton, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez podium. What do you guys think about that?
Ooh. I kind of sort of see him as in a similar vein as Ricciardo. I think he's still sort of trying to find his feet with the car, maybe. I could be wrong, but I think, give him time. Maybe not this race. I didn't envision him doing too much this race, but maybe in a little while. We'll see. And if not, well, they're kind of stuck with him for this year. They can't really. Or can they get him out? Can they get him out of the seat? That was that was another thing on the group chat. That's for maybe another podcast.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think, all the new drivers into those new teams against experienced teammates seem to struggle. Sainz, Ricciardo, Perez, they all lacked maybe a few tenths in comparison to their teammates. But give them a few races, maybe we shouldn't expect something to maybe the halfway point of the season or maybe the third of the season until we really start to see them get up to speed with their teammates, I think. But they all put in a good shift. Sainz had some really good race pace on his final stint and closed from 8 seconds up to 0.7 seconds in about 10 laps on Ricciardo. Ricciardo was holding his own in that midfield fight, and Perez obviously fought through. So that they've got the talent. They just need to get up to speed with that car, don't they? And then they'll be there.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
It should be a good season, though.
Yeah. But what could be instrumental for Red Bull is that they now potentially may have a second driver who can sweep up those constructors' points. And then they could take that constructors' fight to Mercedes.
As like the dark horse. So it's not necessarily a case of the 1 and 2 all the time consistently, but if they're chipping away at it, hopefully.
Exciting. I can't wait. I just can't wait for the rest of the season. I can't believe we've got 3 weeks. I'm not used to such a long wait up and other than the summer break. It just feels like ages until we gotta get them
but
back.
If they all go ahead, we've got so many races coming. It's the longest calendar.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, you're all going to be sick of me by the end.
we're gonna be seeing a lot of each other on the group chat. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll call it there, guys. I think we've talked about that fantastically. Thank you so much for coming on, being here with us. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this and want to find more of our content, make sure to look out for us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or on Spotify, and visit our website at www.thepitcrewonline.net. A special thank you to Ashleigh and Arron for joining us, guys. Where can our listeners find you on social media?
So on Twitter at AaronErwin7.
And I'm love_Lee and 2 kisses on Twitter.
Fantastic. And obviously you can find me on Twitter at Wheeler_deals. So that's it for another episode of the Pitcast. And as always, we will see you out on